Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I wanted to do a few cases of people that went missing and were found like decades later. One of my subscribers actually suggested that to me. I'm going to try to find your name somewhere and put it on the screen because I forgot to write it down. And I thought it was a really good idea. I'm always interested in cases like this. And like 2 years ago, I found like a case like that happened in Belgium. And I thought it was so interesting to cover it, but it was so short that I couldn't dedicate a whole video to it. So I thought I would combine a few cases in one. And I hope you like that. Before we get started though, I wanted to say that this video has once again kindly been sponsored by Surfshark VPN. I have been using Surfshark for a month now, and I have to say, like, out of all the VPNs I've ever used, they are, first of all, the absolute easiest to install. I have them on my iPad and my MacBook, and it's like 2 clicks and done. But they are also one of the only, if not the only VPN that actually works with Netflix. Because I used to watch US Netflix over VPN all the time, and then about 5 years ago, Netflix started detecting VPNs and you couldn't use it anymore. I'm sure a lot of you have had that same problem. But Surfshark actually works. I've been watching US Netflix for a few weeks now, and there are like no problems whatsoever. Same with BBC iPlayer. They were detecting VPNs and can't detect Surfshark. So if you're looking for a really good VPN, I highly suggest Surfshark. They're also one of the cheapest services out there. And if you enter promo code ASMR Zelda, you not only get another 83% off the price, but you also get 3 months free. So make sure to check out the link below, and thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. So let's get into the first case. So the first case is about a boy called Simon Lambie. Simon was just 14 years old when he went missing in 1999 in Belgium. He had arrived only 10 days earlier as a refugee from Angola with his mother and 3 siblings. He was actually the oldest of 4 children. His father didn't arrive in the country until a good bit later. On November 12th of 1999, around 5 p.m., he asked his mother if he could go watch TV in a community center nearby. It was only a 5-minute walk, and it was the only place that he knew at the time. So his mother agreed, but he never arrived at the community center. Police was alerted to his disappearance and started a search. Child Focus, which is an organization in Belgium dedicated to specifically missing children, they distributed missing persons flyers or missing persons posters all over the country. His father, who arrived in the country much later, said in an interview that he would never just run away, that out of the 4 children he was the best behaved, and that he was really happy to be in Belgium. They had just gotten social housing, so they had just, were like in their own house. He had gotten a new bike and some new clothes, like he was really happy to be there. And that he didn't speak either Dutch or French, so it would be very hard for him to run away from home. The investigation was also made more difficult because his mother didn't speak Dutch or French either, and it was very hard for her to give information to police regarding him. I do find it a little bit strange that she allowed him to go watch TV at a community center when he didn't speak any of the languages. I don't know whether there were other refugees from his country that he met and he could communicate with them, because because otherwise I don't really know what he would do at the community center if he couldn't speak to anyone and he wouldn't understand what was on the TV. So that was the only part where I was like, okay, but if your kid asks you to go watch TV somewhere but he doesn't speak the language at all, why would you let him? But that aside, the case went cold. And then in November 2018, a relative or acquaintance, it was like, I tried to translate it from Dutch, but in the article it said an acquaintance who was related. So either someone very close to the family or an actual relative, I don't really know, recognized Simon while on vacation in an undisclosed European country. They had, over the years, made age progression photos of him, so I don't know if they recognized him that way or just, from when he was 14, but recognized him and then alerted police in Belgium to this. So police went and investigated it and found that this 33-year-old man was indeed Simon. He had a family of his own at this point. He's living in another European country. Police won't disclose where because of his privacy. They also won't disclose his new name because he doesn't live under the same name. He has not given any details on how he got to this country, but police assume that at the very least once he got there, he requested asylum as an unaccompanied minor and got it. He was not in the country illegally, and they couldn't arrest him because he hadn't actually done anything illegal. He was, it's not illegal to request asylum. He had never done or used illegal papers or done anything illegal. The only thing that he would tell police is that he ran away because of family problems. And he did not want to be reunited with his family, which I thought was interesting because it was a really long time later. And he still didn't want to be reunited with them. I don't know what went on in that household. It's not easy, obviously, being a refugee. I could understand that he ran away out of fear, maybe of being afraid that him and his family would get sent back to the country they came from, and he ran away because of that. But now that he was legal and his family was legal in Belgium, he still didn't want to be reunited with them, and he did say that there were problems at the home, but he didn't elaborate on that. I'm a little bit, it's very vague how the relative found him, but if he was able, if he told police about this and police were able to find where he lived, then I would imagine that the relative knew where he lived, and the relative either recognized him and followed him home, or actually spoke to him and he invited him home, which I somehow doubt, because then why alert police after? I would imagine that if he knows where the guy lives, he can just tell his parents the address and they can go visit him. I don't know. But he either had to know exactly where he lived or at least know his new name so that police could find him that way. But it is not mentioned in any article. A lot of these cases are so short that literally every article you read is the exact same, has actually the exact same wording. So, not a lot more information out there. But I can only imagine that it was an abusive home. I mean, I don't know why else as a 14-year-old you would run away, and oh my god, I can't even count, as a 33-year-old, so 19 years later, wouldn't want to be reunited with your family. It's not, and I didn't get what I want, I'm going to run away type thing. It's an actual, I never want to see my family again, and follow safe and well 19 years later. Now, a somewhat similar story is the next case of Petra Pashtika. Petra was 24 years old, and she was studying computer science in college. Around the holidays of 1984, she was planning to go home and spend the holiday with her parents and her brother while working on her thesis. Before she left, she asked a neighbor to take care of her plants, and she then went to a dentist appointment, and after that she was going to take the bus home, but she never arrived at her parents' home. They thought that maybe she'd stayed at school a few days longer and just, to work. But when she didn't show up for her brother's birthday 2 days later, they reported her missing. Now, again, most of the articles I read on this were exactly the same with the exact same wording, except for one, which told a slightly different story, that her parents were actually going on holiday and she was going to their house to watch her little brother while working on her thesis, and that it was her brother who reported her missing. Not a huge difference, but wanted to put it out there anyway. So police conducted a widespread search. They interviewed her professors who had not seen her in school while school was out. It was a holiday, but they hadn't seen her around campus, and they interviewed her friends who hadn't heard from her. Police definitely thought that she may have been the victim of a murder. They never thought that she would have run away, because she was actively planning stuff. She asked her neighbor to take care of her plants, and she attended a dentist appointment like nothing was going on. And they really thought that she was the victim of a murder, so they actually changed their investigation into a murder investigation and thought that it might be linked to the murder of a 14-year-old girl 2 years before. Her body was actually found in a forest almost next to where the bus stop was that Petra would have taken the bus. It was very near the bus. And in 1985, so a year after Petra went missing, they arrested a 19-year-old man who ended up confessing to killing the 14-year-old girl and also to killing Petra. However, police didn't fully believe his story, and they never found any evidence linking him to Petra. But they did to the 14-year-old girl, so he was ultimately only convicted for killing the 14-year-old girl. 5 years later, Petra was officially declared dead, but for over 30 years, they never found her body. Then in September of 2015, so 31 years later, about 200 miles away from where this happened, police were called to a burglary in an apartment. It was actually reported by the neighbors, not by the resident herself. When police questioned the lady, she was an older lady whose name was Petra Schneider. They kept asking to see her ID, and she couldn't produce one, which obviously police thought was very strange, so they kept questioning her and were adamant about the ID, and then eventually she confessed that she was actually Petra Pashtika, and she was able to produce a couple of ID cards expired from back in her 20s to prove that she was actually this person. She told police that she had actually planned to run away for a long time. She had saved up 4,000 Deutsche Mark, which translates now to about 2,050 euro. She had rented an apartment even before she disappeared. She was living in student housing. And at the same time, she rented an apartment so that she could immediately disappear if she wanted to. And she lived in that apartment for a little while, last 11 years until this burglary happened. She didn't socialize with her neighbors. She didn't have friends. She didn't really talk to anyone. She got away for over 30 years with never having to show ID anywhere. She paid her rent and all her bills in cash. She didn't own a credit card. She didn't own a driver's license. She didn't even have a bank account. She managed to stay completely under the radar. Again, police couldn't arrest her because she didn't do anything illegal. She never used false documents. She was never required to show ID. On the one hand, I'm like, how does that happen? But on the other hand, if you never go out, the only place you go is the supermarket. Like, why would you have to show ID, I guess? She refused to tell police why she ran away. She was adamant that it had nothing to do with her family. There was no abuse or anything weird going on there. She simply wanted to be left alone. Now, her father had since died. Obviously, when police called her mother and brother, they were in shock and cried and were like so relieved, but she didn't want to see them. They gave a letter to police to give to her in the hopes that she would change her mind, but that was 5 years ago, and I have not been able to find anything that she actually has seen them since. I mean, at this point, she was 55 years old, and again, not interested in reuniting with her family. Some people wonder, like, I tried to find a little bit of information on this. There's a theory out there that maybe she ran away because of the Cold War. Like, East and West Germany were still separated at the time, and she was a computer science student. Her thesis was actually on computer languages, and people think that maybe she was working on something that would uncover something in like the Cold War, and that she ran away because she was scared. I mean, it's a bit far-fetched, although I don't think it's even that far-fetched. I just wonder why 31 years later, when the Cold War is long over, why she would still not want to go home. She doesn't want to be reunited with her family, and I don't know if that has anything to do with fear. It seems to me like she just doesn't want to. Maybe she's just genuinely a person who hates to be around other people and just wants to be alone. My first thought would always be similar to Simon's case, that it was an abusive home, because why else would you not want to be reunited with your family? But she was adamant that it had nothing to do with her family. And her father had also died since, but yet she still didn't want to see her mother or brother. Which, I don't know, it's kind of weird. But yeah, that's all there is in her case. Again, someone who ran away on her own and does not want to see her family. And then the last case is about Denise Bolser. Denise Bolser was also 24 years old when she went missing on January 17th of 1985 from Manchester, New Hampshire. She was married and worked as a bookkeeper. Now, the only thing that was found was a note that said, "I've got your wife. Don't call police or you won't see her again." A few days later, her car, which was actually her husband's car, was found abandoned at Logan Airport in Boston. But all her personal items were inside, and when I say personal, I mean personal. Like, her social security card was found, her birth certificate, her passport, and all her credit cards. Why someone would leave their birth certificate, I don't understand. I mean, first of all, if you kidnap a person, Like, a birth certificate is not readily available. I don't even have a copy of mine in the house. Like, why would a kidnapper take it? And even if you run away yourself, why would you take your birth certificate and then leave it behind? Just leave it behind in your house if you're not going to do anything with it. Like, I found that really weird. Police assumed that she had been either kidnapped or murdered, but they couldn't find any evidence of this. Not until about a year later, when one of her co-workers was accused of embezzlement. Police started an investigation and found that Denise herself had actually embezzled about $12,000 by falsifying the books, and that she may have run away in fear. She was actually convicted of embezzlement in 1986, but of course she was missing. And after that, the case went cold. Her husband divorced her shortly after she went missing, but they were already estranged at the time that she went missing. I think they were planning to get divorced anyway, and he just went through with it. Then in 2002, police received a lead that they followed up on, and they actually ended up finding Denise to be alive and well, living in Panama City, Florida. She had started a new family, and they knew nothing about her past. Denise told police that she had embezzled, in fact, $100,000, and that she had lived in South Carolina, the Bahamas, Hawaii, and California before eventually moving to Florida. Now, she said that she went to her boss to let him know that someone was embezzling, and that her boss was actually involved in it and made her embezzle money and threatened to kill her if she didn't do it. It was apparently a company that his wife owned, and he forced her to embezzle $100,000, and she got scared and ran away. I found that in one article. Everyone else was kind of vague, and it was just like she embezzled $100,000 and her boss threatened to kill her. And I just assumed that meant that her boss found out about it and threatened to kill her. But now that I think about, like, in my mind, I was like, okay, she clearly took the $100,000 because she lived in Hawaii and California, which are the two most expensive states of the United States. Like, I've been to Hawaii. Even just breathing is expensive there. Like, everything is really expensive there. So I would imagine that she took the $100,000 and left. Thinking about it now, I don't think her boss would have threatened her if he found out she was embezzling. I think he would have just gone to police. So I do think that it's most likely her boss who made her embezzle, but I think she took that money and left. It wasn't mentioned in any article. But given where she lived over the years, that's what I would think. Police ended up dropping the embezzlement case against her because her ex-boss had long since died, and it was so long ago. She was actually reunited with her family, so her parents spent each winter in Orlando, so they actually weren't that far away from her this whole time. And police invited them and her siblings to the police station, and they were reunited. And all, like, in shock, but very, very happy to see each other again. So, she was actually, like, she ran away because of a different reason. She ran away because she felt threatened, but she was more than happy to be reunited with her family, and she was living with, like, she had a husband and kids of her own at this point. And I don't know, like, cases like this, even the other two cases, give me hope for some of the cases I've covered on this channel, where I think maybe one day they're gonna find someone and alive and well. Like, it's rare, but it happens. I always think back to the Lars Mittank case, who disappeared on vacation and was never seen again. And I wonder whether that was a psychotic break or whether he just wanted to run away from his life, and maybe one day in like 20 or 30 years time someone is going to recognize him and it's going to turn out that he's alive and well. Like, it gives me hope a little bit for some of the cases I've covered that maybe one day these people will be found again. It is, at least because there's some other cases I looked at, I'll probably do another video like this, where it wasn't running away, but it does seem like in most cases these people choose to go away themselves, whether it's for like fear or whether it's because they have a bad home situation. But it seems to happen a little bit more than I think sometimes. So, yeah. Anyway, that was